Welcome to this new Motorsport Talks series with Motorsport Engineer. Motorsport Engineer is a platform for engineers and professionals who want to learn directly from the best industry professionals. We do this by publishing our own online courses and running webinars with the relevant suppliers in the industry. Today, we have Rui Alves with us, a data and race performance engineer with experience working in GT racing, GP2, today known as Formula 2, and also Formula E. How are you, Rui?
Oh, good. Thank you.
We're very happy to have you with us, Rui, today, and really look forward to getting to know you more, knowing the steps that you have taken to get to where you are. But before we get to that stage, we would like to start from the beginnings. Who is Rui Alves? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what are your origins?
Yeah. So thanks for the introduction. I mean, my history is quite. So I was born in Portugal, on the south, in Portimão. That is known now by the circuit.
The racetrack, yeah.
Yeah, the really nice track, but it was nothing there. So it was quite recent. It was lucky for me that they built that just next to my house. But yeah, so I born on the south of Portugal. Is most known for the nice beach and the good weather. So I studied here, and then I moved to Lisbon to go to the university, mechanical engineer, like generic stuff. But there was always on the back of my mind to do something in motorsport because I'm passionate about it. I always follow it. I was like going to all the rallies around me. I did attend some F1 races when I was little. I do remember it, watching all the rallies, everything that I could get my hands, I would see it. Even when I moved to Lisbon, one of the nicest things I thought was, okay, now I can go to Estoril more often, to see races. So, and even when I was in university, I was studying, I got involved being a track marshal in Estoril because, he allowed me to see the races and getting some money, but, getting involved on it. Mm-hmm. And as I was getting to the end of the degree, I started to get in contact with some teams, try to see what, if they were looking for somebody, if I could help doing, anything. And that actually came together with the Portuguese team. They were from Lisbon. So I could, in the end of the degree, I had like 3 or 4 courses that I need to do. So I had plenty of time. So I could, put both together, doing some races with them as a tire guy in the LMP project that they just started. Mm-hmm. And I mean, was a simple job, was not engineering job, let's say. It was just a tire guy cleaning wheels, but I was thrilled. I remember when they said, if they asked me if I wanted to go with them, I said, well, yes, let's do it. And it was really nice. So then he started from there. So yeah, in the end, I did stay 2-3 years with them, and then I moved back to Portugal because my wife moved back to Portimão, to the south, because my wife is from here. So, and I really didn't. Okay, Lisbon is a nice place, but I prefer like the smaller cities. And so yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to live in a nice country and to get involved in motorsport, because in Portugal it's not really difficult, but I didn't at the time was not the normal path for like my buddies. I'm the only one that is doing this, nobody. Yeah. I was with the school is doing what I'm doing now, because it's it's a bit special. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get a job doing this.
So maybe talking a little bit about your university studies. So you studied mechanical engineering in Lisbon. Was there anything you did there that was related to motorsports? I understand that it was a generic mechanical engineering degree, but to help people that might be listening that are also stuck with generic mechanical engineering degrees and really want to pursue a career in motorsports engineering, what did you do to kind of help yourself in the following steps in your life, right? Was there anything that you did? And I'm thinking about maybe a specific dissertation related to car development of some sort, or potentially Formula student. I don't know whether you got involved in Formula student at all.
Yeah. So in the end, I just wanted to end the degree quickly, and I didn't did any special course on motorsport. So everything I did in motorsport were on the side was just reading books from myself, finding which are the correct books that I can read, what is the correct information I need to learn. That was a bit the path. As I was speaking with some teams, they were telling me, okay, it would be nice that you learn about this. So I was looking for books that would speak about that subject. I did in the university, was involved in Shell Eco Marathon. I don't know that it still exists or not, but it was a nice project, trying to do the biggest distance with a smaller amount of fuel consumption. So it was not really motorsport, but it's like a project that involved some kind of cars, let's say it. From a student was just starting when I was in university. I was not involved on it. Some of my colleagues were, but I was not involved with it. But it looked quite promising. But I didn't have the chances to actually be involved on that one because I was already on the other one, on the Shell Eco Marathon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was more to learn about motorsport was, let's say, a self-learning procedure that I took, like trying to get from the teams, because in the beginning they said, yeah, it would be nice that you learn about this, that's what we are missing. And everything started a bit like that. So, finding the books, learning myself, and then, trying to have a go, try to have somebody that could give me a chance.
And what was your involvement with the Shell Eco Marathon team?
I was just when there was quite small team. I think it was 6 guys there. Everybody had like a bit of a department in the engine. I was more on the chassis side, making sure that everything was put together in the correct place. The car was not dismantled himself, let's say it, because it needed to be light, as light as possible. So there was some back in the days. We were doing like the chassis and the outside, let's say it, of the chassis was in fiber. So we were doing that together with TAP, that is the aircraft company. They were kind of sponsoring, and they allow us in, to do the mold and the chassis with the carbon fiber and with the glues. Well, we did everything by ourselves with their help, obviously. But it was nice to be involved on that one also.
So you already had exposure to carbon fiber and mechanical design from a very early stage, when still at university. Would you recommend students getting involved in these sort of projects or championships like Formula Student or Shell Eco Marathon?
In the end, is the best way you can is the easiest way to get involved. The best way is to be in the team and learn directly with the team. But it's no teams will get students without a background knowledge. So that's the first thing you can do. And some of the times you can actually use that knowledge to do on your degree, to do some classes and to actually do some academic studies with that. I didn't get that chance, but in the end, because you get away of the degree doing something that you really like. So yeah, if you can do that, why not?
Absolutely. I'm totally with you. So then, like, this kind of summarizes your education. You didn't go down the route of doing a master's degree or PhD or anything like that. You already mentioned that while you were finishing the university, you were volunteering with a race team, a Portuguese race team, and you were helping them with like the wheels, doing some grassroots tasks really with the team. How did it evolve from there? Well, first of all, how did you get in touch with them? Was it something that you were emailing them, calling them directly? Did you already know someone in the team?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a stalker moment of my life. So I sent emails to all the teams I knew. And, by the chance, it was actually the best one that kind of gave some feedback. I would now, looking backwards, I would understand it's not that the other ones didn't want to give a feedback, it was just the conditions were different. So that team was actually the best one. It was more structured in terms of, knowing where they can get the best people. The other ones were just teams with just a bunch of friends that, are together with the mechanic and somebody that comes on the weekends to help out. And that's what team was. They were much better structure, with some engineers already there. So, mechanics, they were everything, the structure was, the baseline was there, and they knew that getting students involved was the best way to have knowledge coming with no need, because in Portugal you don't have many race engineers that you can just call and can you come do a race. There were at the time there was really none, so everybody that they were actually hiring in England, in France, to have engineers to come to do their races, to in their project. So everybody that they can have locally, it's better for them because less expenses, and better for the for the students and for guys like me that wants to involve on the sport. So yeah, and then the history was, so I was pushing like hell to to do something with them. I did a couple of tests, just helping out when there was testing in Estoril, and then they started this LMP project, and they needed somebody for the wheels. They would take a mechanic, but then the engineer there, okay, do you see a problem doing tires, just cleaning wheels and making sure the tires are, of all the sets are organized and everything? And I said, yeah, whatever I do, whatever it is, I'm okay with it. So actually, it was already a bit of a tricky job, because you had was back on the days you had actually qualifying tires, so you have different compounds. Okay. Nowadays, you don't, except in F1, but if you see a race now for the costs, all the tire is the same for everybody. So there is no different compounds. You have sometimes different tire manufacturers, and that's it. But back in the days, we were actually qualifying tires. You had hard tires, soft tires. So it was, I remember I had like 8-10 sets that I needed to organize, because it was LMP. We had like the tire warmers. So I was in charge of that, let's say it. And the way I did it, okay, I put already a bit of a system in there, but I think they liked it. I would not say impressed. Maybe they were impressed, I don't know. Because what happened was then they had, parallel to this project, they had some GT cars running on the Spanish GT. And they actually got one extra client and they needed an engineer for that car. Mm-hmm. So they proposed me, was quite, on the same time I was finishing the degree. That client was coming to them, was with a Cup, with the Porsche 911 Cup, and they needed an engineer, and they asked me if I would be interested, and I said yes, obviously. So it started like that. Then I became a race engineer on that car, being full-time on the workshop.
Wow, so you basically just finished university and you had landed a job as a race engineer in the Porsche Cup.
Yes. Not Porsche Super Cup, was just was a cup car on the Spanish GT, but it was was quite time. The time was perfect, let's say.
Mm-hmm. And how was the experience working on that car as a race engineer?
Again, looking back, was a bit was not the I would not say the best way to start with, but because you are racing. But then you have a customer that is coming with his own car, and sometimes he's bringing you get a different driver, to pair with him, and there are some cost, not issues, but there are some costs involved. So you need to deal with that with some. You need to be careful to deal with that. So the project is not only to be to win races or to have the best race possible. It's always to manage that everybody's happy.
So the human side.
Yeah, the human side. So in the end, somebody's paying for it, and that who's paying for it needs to be happy. Needs to be needs to be that his money is being well used. So it's a lot of doing as much as you can with not a lot of money. And again, it was was Spanish GT. It was not big budgets. We are speaking just quite basic stuff. So that was a bit of the tricky part of the job. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the learning was every time I was learning. I was lucky enough to have good mechanics. That always there's one of the principles I have is, if you are an engineer, if you're not sure, if you have a good mechanic, 50% of your job is already done. Mm-hmm. So I was really lucky with that, because I had really good mechanics that helped me to learn the job and to grow as a mechanical engineer, like to mature my knowledge in there.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't say what team that was. I'm not sure.
I know, ASM, Portuguese. ASM,
okay.
Yeah, ASM team.
ASM. So you stayed how long did you stay with ASM?
So I think it was 3 years. I guess. So even afterwards, yeah, it was 3 years. So I did the first one, with LMP, and then with that cup, and then at some client he actually bought RSR for the next season, and we also did some Open GT in Spain. They were starting this championship, so you had Spanish, and on parallel you had Open GT that was running in a bit of a different places. We did some of the races there. The level there was already quite high. Then in the end, I think the Spanish GT kind of died, and the Open still exists. So it's actually a valid championship. It's a good one. So I did, then 2 years with that car. I kept doing the LMP as a tire guy. Okay. They asked me if I would, if I want to continue, and I said yes, because in the LMP on the other side, I was getting in touch with some really nice drivers. I remember we hired Olivier Pla. We had the gentleman, was Miguel Amaral. It was like paying the bill, let's say it. And then they hired a professional driver to pair with him. And I mean, to be in touch then with Olivier Pla, that was, really known driver then, and they had some good engineers. I remember that Paul Thomas, Alan Madleston, there were some of the race engineers of that car. And being involved even as a tire guy was really good, because everything I could hear the radio, what they were saying, and I was back in the garage cleaning wheels, but every time I had some spare, I would go in the front, have a peek, seeing what the guys were doing, trying to understand everything, like a sponge, getting all the knowledge in. It was a bit, so it was really good to be involved in both.
I can imagine. And what happened after your stint with that team? What was the next step in your career?
Yeah, so again, the timing was perfect, let's say it, because again, I wanted to move out from Lisbon to come back in Portimao, and exactly on that time they opened the track. Yeah, so they built the track, they opened it, and Tiago Monteiro, that I knew from before. So Tiago, he was, let's say, he had a house. He was my neighbor in Portimao. He was living in Porto, but on the summer he was coming down to Portimao, and he was my neighbor. So I knew him before he was racing, and I never worked with him before. And I was keeping him updated with what I was doing with motorsport and stuff like this. And when after those 2 years, I wanted to move to Portimao. And he bought a GP2 team, and he wanted to bring the team in Portimao. So they were based on the track for, I think, 3 seasons, based in Portimao. So, and he needed somebody local. Again, ideally, it would everybody, local, but there was nobody with experience in Portimao on the GP2 team, obviously. So I got in I was the only one actually, me and one mechanic, the only one that were actually from Portugal. Everybody was hired, freelancers from UK, France, Italy, all those places. But that was good for them, because they had somebody local that could manage, all the daily basis problems that you need. You need to find something for the cars. You need to get a air bottle, all this kind of stuff I was dealing with. And I was then doing data during the race days. So again, I had, really good engineers that helped me out to learn. I knew some data, obviously, from the GT, to read data, to help the drivers, but was gentleman drivers, again, the difference was from day to night because then in GP2, I started to deal with proper drivers, race drivers that they want to be, in front, whatever costs. And the first time I was Álvaro Parente, and that is a really known Portuguese driver, really talented, did some F1 testing. And
was he in the program with Red Bull? Is it possible? Or was
Álvaro? No.
Okay.
No, Álvaro never did it. No, he was too. I think it was before his time. Let's say Red Bull started afterwards. They were really strong before. At this time, they were maybe starting. Let's say to have the Red Bull Academy. Okay. But I had was Álvaro and Karum Shandok. That was actually afterwards he went to F1. So actually Karum was my driver. I was doing data for him.
Yeah.
And it was really nice because Karum is, I mean, he's mega. He's then he knew data better than me. Even if I was the data guy, he had his own WinTax license. He
Okay.
had his own workbook prepared. So was the only driver that I saw until today that has his own page already prepared. He would bring his USB sticker. Okay, copy that. He was telling me everything to do, and then because the data was already in a way that you could understand it and read it better. So on that level, Karum was really lucky to be with him because he was not demanding a lot from me because I could not perform. I was just doing that for the first time, on that level Formula car. So it was really nice. We spent 1 year, and after that year, I think the curve of learning was
Yeah. So for those that don't know or that don't remember, GP2 is the championship that got renamed as Formula 2, right? And is a feeder series directly to Formula 1, and they do a lot of races. Basically, I think it's pretty much all the European races are done alongside Formula 1.
That's the other thing. That's a good point. So I was jumping from with Spanish GT, to F1 paddock. It's F1 support paddock, but still it's F1 paddock. We were racing when F1 cars were having a rest. We were doing our tests, our practices, qualifying and races on the same pit lane. I mean, it's
yeah, and I mean, and I'm not sure about the budgets, right? I don't want to maybe say figures that are not right, but I am convinced that the budgets of a GT car championship or a team competing in a Spanish level championship doesn't have to do anything at all, doesn't resemble at all with the budget of a GP2 team, right? It's international travel, the car is the Lara car.
That was one of the not shocks, but because I was the guy, the Portuguese contact, they would say to me, okay, Rui, we need some tie wraps, let's imagine tie wraps. And I was just buying, okay, how many do you need, and checking, okay. So I was buying maybe, exactly the quantity and they need, and they said, oh, Rui, it doesn't work like this,
We need spares.
The proper team, you need to buy a box full of them and then that's it, don't care about €1 less, €1 less. I mean, okay, obviously we are not throwing money away, but there was one of the biggest that mechanics were because there were GP2 mechanics, the freelancers that were coming. They were like, okay, wait, what's happening? I mean, this is it's proper racing. We need to have better conditions and the budgets, obviously. But it was like the biggest shock I had was that was the difference in terms of equipment and I say the supplies. There was from again day and night.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine must have been big change in a positive way, but also required a lot of adapting to the new role. So maybe tell us a little bit about the role itself. What did you do with the team, and how was a typical week or a typical month with the team?
Yeah, so because I was the only one that was, let's say, full time, I had a lot. So the day to day, all the orders or the stuff that stuff arriving on the track, ordering the normal garage suppliers, like tools, this kind of stuff. It was me dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, I got some help, but in the beginning. It was I remember I was the first one opening the truck, taking the cars out when we bought everything, buying shelves, for example, for the workshop, buying all the equipment that was needed. It was I was a bit responsible. I was helping a lot with that. And then obviously we had the racing and we had the data and we had the, let's say, preparing the event. So with some data that we added previously, having a bit briefings with the drivers, what to expect, trying to get some onboards, of the track, putting together the more information possible for the drivers to arrive on the track, the best as possible prepared. And we had not a lot, but we have some testing. The testing was rough because especially in the beginning, it was the start of the team. We are getting the cars from other team that in the end they were a bit with problems with money, and we got the car, so the car was not in the best shape, so we had a lot of issues trying to solve everything that was not correct. installing sensors, all of that stuff. That I didn't add a lot of experience, but afterwards, once maybe if I was experienced, you would take 2 hours instead of the 4 or 5 that it took. But it was afterwards, after that rough year, you get, a bigger, or again, a lot of learning that you can use. So having harder years is better. Okay, it's worse because you don't sleep as much, but in the end, it builds up your knowledge much better.
So I presume, was that the first generation of GP2 cars from Dallara?
Was actually, so we added the first one, they were running in Asia, that we were doing also.
Okay.
So we were doing Asia series, and the second one was the European. So we kept running the Asia, I think, for that season and maybe the season afterwards. So 2 seasons more. So that was the Asia cars. So we had actually 4 cars. So 2 for Asia that we're doing sometimes in the end of the season and start of the other season. So you would send the cars to Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, doing some races there. And then we had like the European series that would do European races, let's say it. Afterwards, they finish it. They stopped with doing the Asia cars. By the time they changed to the third generation, those cars were doing everything. So there were no more Asia series. So everything was just one series that what they are doing now is, so they do some European races, but then they ended up doing some the Bahrain and Abu Dhabi rounds also.
And in terms of trackside engineering tools and softwares more specifically, what did you use or what did you have to learn for these specific cars in order to analyze data and so on?
Yeah, so those cars was Magneti Marelli, TU based. So that was so we had Wintax to analyze data, and we had Axon to deal with all the systems on the car.
Okay.
They're both on Magneti Marelli. So we would have, for example, the map for the clutch, the throttle map, calibration of sensors, everything was doing with Axon. And then all the data analysis, the download and checking the sensors or checking the car behavior itself was with Wintax. So there was a lot of work with the Wintax, with formulas and stuff like this, to get your understeer, oversteer channels right and all of that. It's Wintax is I mean, I'm still using Wintax today for the Formula E. So it's Wintax is a really nice tool. So it was quite lucky already again to have, for me, the best one until now. Okay, there's some other stuff already with the really good level, but at the time Wintax was I think was the state of the art, and it was really good to have contact with that.
Yeah, I guess even more so, no? If that's a tool that you can still use today for other cars and other categories, I mean, that's knowledge that you already have acquired for a long time, and you can still develop.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really nice. When I went back to Wintax was because I did the first year in Formula E, I used McLaren software, Atlas. So you always take a bit to get used to that. But when I went again with Audi, they used the Wintax, and I was like, okay, thank God, really nice to go back to Wintax. It was a really nice step.
Very good. So this is your experience with the Portuguese GP2 team. You spent there quite some time. I was checking your profile. How was it? A few years that you spent with them, right? If I'm not wrong.
3 or 4. I lost a bit then.
Yeah. So, Ocean Racing was the name of the team.
Exactly. Yeah. Because in one of the last years the plan was to come and build a workshop near. It was not actually be based on the track. Was to be based near a workshop they would going to build. In this industrial area, but that it never happened, and we actually moved to Porto, so on the north, for the last season. Yeah, so that was the first time I was a bit away from home, let's say it. And I think that was the last year. And then they actually ended up selling the team in the end. But before that, I don't know, everybody knew that they were having some issues. So I got in contact with some teams, and I ended up changing team for my last GP2 year to
ADAX. To ADAX, okay.
Yeah.
The Spanish-based GP2 team, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So they are based in Valencia. So they took, there was Alejandro Agag team, let's say. He was involved with Fernando Alonso, Flavio Briatore, and it was like a really nice team. They were like fighting for championship then. They were really good, and the way they operate was fitting what I wanted to do. It was, spend not a lot of time in the workshop. I still lived there, but they were quite flexible, to have long weekends and this kind of stuff. So, and they were Spanish. I could speak Spanish quite okay, and it was again a good experience to be with them, because again they had some really nice background. That year that I was in was not really the strongest one. It's not. I think it was not my fault, but I'm in the lineup of drivers then. It was not the best, let's say it, but it was a good year again. We did some podiums. We didn't win races, but we were quite up there. It was good. Not fighting for the championship, but the results were quite good.
So you found the job thanks to your network. You had already a lot of people that you knew in the industry and in the GP2 championship, and it was fairly easy, let's say, because you had to do a few phone calls and you managed to find something.
I mean, in the end, I would not say easy. Again, it was a bit of luck, let's say. That was the team on the paddock that I would fit better. And by the chance, they had an engineer that left and they needed somebody. So we got in contact, and it was we found a good agreement between ourselves. And they were, I knew them from the paddock. In the end, it's a small paddock. The teams are not that big in F2.
How big are they?
We are speaking about, so you would have 3 mechanics per car plus 2 engineers, so that's 10 people. Then you have like maybe 4, in terms of let's say the chief engineer and marketing and logistics. So I would say 15 people each team. There are 8 teams. I mean, okay, it's 80 people, but it's not a lot. It's not considered a big team, let's say it. Everybody knows him. And when you are around for 2-3 years, your face starts to be, common. And in the end, we do share the same catering, because we have all the same catering for all the teams. So you ended up, knowing the guys, and because they were Spanish, I was speaking already with them a lot. So we ended up knowing some of the guys there. And once I wanted to leave, I got in contact, and was handy, because they lost one engineer, so it was good. They needed somebody, and they took me. It was really good.
That's great. And what was your role with the team? Was it different to the one that you were living on the Portuguese team?
Was a bit different. So on ADAX, that we had actually the simulator that we didn't add in Ocean. In Ocean, drivers were going to people started with the simulators then, let's say. Drivers getting prepared for the event, going on a simulator was not that common. It started kind of around those years, to all the drivers doing simulator before the races. And with Ocean, we had like this contact in England. So I was not actually attending, only the race engineers were going there. But with ADAX, we had our own simulator. So it was actually built on the workshop. So the drivers were coming there. So I was attending the simulation with them, simulators, doing all the job with the preparation. So it was, the driver compare, you ended up being a bit more prepared for yourself also, not only the drivers, but the engineers and data engineers also, to be better prepared. And I was doing also, I started also in Ocean, but I kind of used that a lot in ADAX. Was dampers. So I was actually rebuilding dampers and testing the dampers after all the event. It was also was most of the job, let's say, after each event, coming out, and changing cartridges if needed. So this is the inside of the damper. If we are going to a different track where they think we need a different setup, let's say, in terms of damper. So I was doing all of that, testing it, rebuild, normal maintenance, check if there were leaks and stuff like this. I was doing that in ADAX a lot.
Very good. And the team was structured in a different way, or are all GP2 or Formula 2 teams structured in a pretty much same way, you think?
again, you cannot have a lot of differences because we are we are not allowed those many people, So you ended up having the two mechanics and plus a helper in terms of fuel tire for each side, and then you ended up having a data and the race engineer, and then some teams have a chief engineer or they have a logistics guy. So yeah, maybe in there can change, but the basic structure was the same. Let's say it. There's
Very
no
good.
margin for big changes.
And so how many seasons did you spend with ADAX?
It was 1 year.
One year, okay.
Yes.
And what happened after ADAX then?
So again, I think it's not my fault. They sold the team. They sold the team back to Campos. So originally it was Campos, and then they bought it to Campos. They did that, I think, 5 years, something like this, maybe less, 3 years. And then they sold the team back to Campos, and Campos he had his F3 team there. So yet, and because I was not living in Valencia, I think there was not big point to stay there. But because Agag was developing already there the Formula E, and we knew because we were in the team, we knew what was going to happen, and I already wanted to do a change in terms of championship. And when they told me about Formula E, racing in the middle of cities, electric cars, I was like, that sounds really interesting. So already there, I was, with my years, trying to, to see what was happening there. So, but because Formula E, they started later in the year. So
what year?
Do you remember anymore? 16, I think, or
okay.
15, 16. But on the when I left ADAX, I still got a contact in GP2 because I was not sure I was doing Formula E because the teams they were still putting the teams together. Nobody was sure if it was really going to happen. Everybody was okay until we have the cars. On the workshop we don't start hiring, so teams were a bit waiting to see what happened. And I mean, because I didn't have anything to do, I got in contact with some GP2 teams, and I actually did. I started with Motopark.
Okay.
That was, in the end, was Russian time. Yeah, so I started with them. They were actually the winning team from that season. They had Sam Bird and Tom Dillman. They won the championship. But then again, I'm so lucky that the team actually finished when I went. So they were based with Motopark in Germany, and the owner of the brand, let's say, he decided to take it to England, to iSport. Okay. So again, he took the team, and my deal was with the Germans, with Motopark, and we ended up having nothing, no team. So, it was not really looking really good. I still did a couple of, I did the tests, like the Asia tests, and some races with Lazarus, that is an Italian team. But again, I kind of felt, okay, maybe this is a sign, let's focus on Formula E. So I was, intensifying my contacts in terms of who I knew that were doing Formula E, because there's a lot of people from GP2, they were doing Formula E. So I was focusing on that, and at some point I got the contact saying, okay, maybe we have a place for you, are you interested? And then, you went from there. So I signed with Venturi, that was actually being prepared by Signature, that is a French team. And some of the engineers there, I worked before with Ocean.
Okay.
So one race engineer and the data engineer were actually, I knew before from Ocean, and they were in Signature for the Formula E project. And then when I got in contact, I said, okay, so if you are available, I think it would be nice for you to help us out, because we have, again, the jump was really good because we passed from drivers that want to go to F1, and trying to, go up on the ladder, to drivers that already did F1, and they, but they are still competitive. And it was the case of Nick Heidfeld and Stefan Sarrazin. So they felt they had some students doing the data, but at some point they said, no, these guys are really experienced, so we need experienced data to go with them. So that's why they called me.
And how was it like to be involved in Formula E in the early stages, right? Because what you were saying is something that sounds extremely promising, and exciting. But at the end of the day, it's the very early days of a championship. There is a lot of uncertainty surrounding this championship. Um, Still not clear how many teams are going to be involved, where you're going to be racing, and so on. What was the feeling that you were having about the championship, and how were the early days for you?
I mean, when I got the confirmation, everybody was quite sure that the championship was going to happen. So
Okay.
when they are hired, they start hiring and getting the agreements done with everybody. The feeling was, okay, this is really happening. We have the cars, the cars are there, so we are safe. Let's say it's to get this thing going. So it was not that, okay, you were going into a dark place where you don't know where, you don't know you're going to put your feet on. But no, it's not, it didn't felt like that. It felt really, something was building there really nice, was pioneering in really many aspects, pioneering in new rules, in the concept, on the places we were going, the places we were going to race. I mean, everything was nice stuff. I could not see anything wrong with it. So yeah, and again, to be involved in ocean in the beginning, like that was fresh start, was the first year from the team. Everything was new to everything, to everybody. Was that experience that I got there was really useful then in Formula E, because the same concept, small teams again. So we are speaking again of 15, 14 people around. So everybody needs to do everything. That was a bit also the concept of F2, of GP2. You need to do, you cannot only do data, you need to help out something else. You need to do dampers again, you need to do the simulation. It's like, you need to do a lot of stuff. And that experience with the GP2 was all in with on the Formula E in really similar aspects. So yeah, was like I was saying, all the experience of everything new in Formula E was really useful.
Mm-hmm. And one of the big differences to anything that you had done in the past, and that would have been the case for the rest of the engineers, was the car, right? So you go from an internal combustion engine car to an electric car. It's got a battery, it's got a deployment strategy for the energy. What were the challenges that you were facing in the beginning with such a new car and so different to what you had done before?
Yeah, the thing with there was new for everybody, not only our team, was for all the other teams, and even for the organizer, for the suppliers of the car. I remember McLaren systems, they were supplying the ECU and all the systems that goes. Williams was supplying the battery. Magneti Marelli was supplying all the communications, like the ECU and stuff like this. So but was new for everybody. So if you had a question and you were going to Williams and they were like, they were giving an answer just for you to go back to your garage, but they themselves, they were not sure what they were saying. So we were learning every day was a different thing. So we had to keep a lot of, in terms of systems, how it worked, to be updating every time, what was true yesterday didn't mean it was true tomorrow, so we need to keep an eye on what we were learning, what we knew that was actually true when we could trust, and what we, maybe they said it's like this, but let's try something else because we are not really sure. So yeah, I think even for the drivers, everybody was okay. In the end, is a car. He has 4 wheels. He has a steering wheel, a throttle, and a brake. And in the end, you just need to we did a lot of testing. That's true. On the first, and in the beginning, we did. I remember like six times in Donington. So all the teams were based in Donington. That was like a really nice aspect, let's say it. So everybody was based on the same place. So you could kind of go next door and hey guys, we have this doubt, how do you deal with it? If it was, nothing related with the car going faster, just for the system reliability, everybody was really helpful. So, and teams were helping each other, so yeah, it was a really nice experience on that way.
Did you win the championship of the first year?
If we won it?
Yeah.
No. But I almost won the first race.
Oh wow!
And, yeah. So I think everybody knows the famous crash from Nick Heidfeld and Nicolas Prost on the first round in Hong Kong. So what happened was we had a really nice strategy in terms of the energy. So to deal with the energy, Nick Heidfeld, he was really good. He was really good. So in terms of being, we didn't have the quickest car, let's say it. So he was on that race. He was P5, and his qualifying. He was never, well, I wouldn't say, it was not a top 3, let's say it. He was like a top 5, top 6. It was good, but he never actually went, faster than that. I don't remember what was our qualifying during that year, but not great. But in terms of energy, we were really good, and that's in the end, that's what makes a difference in Formula E. And everybody was learning, and we used a system that I kind of developed with him that was already a bit of the coast and lift. We had like pushing the pedal. So we were using actually the pedal that was meant to be used only in fan boost. We were actually using the pedal to coast, because we were using to go to as a shortcut to a map that was 0 regen, and all the other maps have a bit of regen. So when you coast, you kind of stop the car a lot. So with using that, we can actually coasting a bit better than the other guys. And then we had a really good pit lane strategy that was you had the maximum and the minimum speed, and everybody kind of sticking to the maximum. Yeah. But what we did, because we had to change the cars, then we had 2 cars that we need to change. On the outside, you could kind of compromise. You can take time from so the car was going to stop. The driver would change the car, and then you had a couple of seconds there before you can release the car, because you had the minimum time on the pit lane. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we are taking some of the time stop on the garage to go out with the smaller with the minimum speed allowed. Yeah. So you would going around, I think it was 35K, something like this. And doing that, you send your car earlier than the others. And that's what we did. So we came in so we started P5, then Nick overtakes somebody. It was P4, we came in and we actually went out in P2, because all the apt guys, so Lucas and Daniel and all the other guys, they were stuck behind us on the pit lane. And they were like, on the next race, everybody was doing the same as us. But on that race was really good. So we went to P2. And because of that strategy, we were much better with that dams with Prost, who was P1, Nicolas was P1. And we caught him. And when we were doing the overtake on the last corner, he tried to block us. They touch and disaster. He flipped around. I think he's the most seen crash in Formula E. But was not really nice. I was, on the line because because I was the data engineer. I was giving a lot the energy numbers that he needed to see on the dash to Nick. I was actually telling him because we were not sure with the radios. We had a lot of problems with the radio. Then, the systems, again, everything was new. So it was common to have problems with radios. So it was actually, showing the old style pit board with all the energy numbers. And we was waiting, on the last, on the straight line, waiting for him to come first. And when I was looking on the TV, I see the car going around. I was like, okay, disaster.
Such a shame.
So, it was. But we did some podiums afterwards on that year. We did some podiums. Yeah, again, we had some good performances there.
Mm-hmm. And so that was a time with Venturi. But that's not the only Formula E team that you have worked for. There's been another team as well, right?
No, so that was season 1, the start of everything, and then I got the contact. So the idea was to stay in Venturi, but then I got a contact from Apt. They were interesting, they would need to have one more engineer on their team, because the teams were small, but then they were allowing more people year to year. They were allowing more people in. And they wanted to expand their engineering team. And because I was available, somebody knew me and asked that person, do you know somebody? And then, I know this guy is really good. So we got in contact. And in the end, it's the same paddock. It's the same situation as F2. You are sharing the same catering, sharing the same paddock, not a lot of people. You ended up knowing the faces and knowing the people.
So you don't even need a CV, right?
Say again?
You don't even need to build a CV. They already know you from experience, from having seen
Yeah, I
you.
mean, actually, with apt was really straightforward. I mean, I remember he got in contact and said, somebody gave me your number. Are you interested, to join us? I was like, yes. Then he said, okay, I don't have my CV here, but then on the phone he asked me, okay, but tell me. Actually, he said, okay, when can you send me the CV? And I said, well, I need to wait one more day because I was not home. I was doing a test. And then I said, okay, but I can tell you on the phone what I've done, So we spoke and he said, okay, that looks really good. So let's the week afterwards, then we kind of formalize it. But it was, in the end, he knew me already a bit, what I was doing. And so, it helped a bit.
And what was the role?
So on Audi, on apt, the first year was doing a bit the same, was more concentrated because the first year in Formula E, I had to do data, performance with the driver, comparing in with the other driver, see where he can do better. Performance with the engineer, seeing, okay, this is the data we are having from the car. What does this mean? What is the car doing? And then I had the systems. I need to do the systems. And the systems, that was actually the worst part. Well, the part that took me more time, let's say it, because you had all the maps, all that thing with the energy. Everything comes from the maps that you have, power maps. It took a lot of time. And with Nick Heidfeld, he's really demanding, and he's asking, every time different stuff. Why do you want to try this? And now we try this, and now we want to change with this map, with this. I mean, at some point I added to say, okay, Nick, I cannot do this in 5 minutes before the session because he would come to me, like 5. Okay, Rui, I want to do this change on the map, and but. He would, to do a drawing on the piece of paper, and I said, okay, Nick, but to put that now on the car, he's going to, it's not that you tell me, you put your helmet and the stuff is there.
Because that's the mindset from a driver that comes from a Formula One team, that they have a lot of people behind them.
Yes, it's a bit like that. But even with a lot of people, nobody would be able to do that in 5 minutes and to be sure what you're going to send, because in the end, we were ending up doing mistakes because he was, in the rush. You don't do, the chances of getting something wrong is quite high. But sometimes there was like the map that was not meant, and it's a mess. So so I was doing a lot of systems, but then in apt, they already had the systems guys there, so they wanted somebody actually to just compare drivers and deal with the strategy.
Okay.
So for both drivers, so that's what I went to do that. So I was actually dealing a bit. I was doing the strategy and data analysis between them, and leaving the data guys, let's say, or the systems, doing only systems, and I was doing data and the race strategy for both of them, helping both sides of the garbage.
Okay, so I find this really interesting. So what does it mean to be a strategy engineer in Formula E? Like, what were your tasks? What were the specific things that you were looking at?
Yeah. So in the end, well, what you want to do is to finish in front of the others. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So with this, the thing with Formula E was really interesting is because you have 2 cars, and normally the races were, I say, even numbers. Yeah. So you would have 39 laps or 23, or so you always could expand a bit the one of the energy, or do a longer stint with one of the cars and a shorter one. And this means if you do a longer one, you go slower because you need to use less energy per lap. And on the other one, because you are shorter, you can use more energy per lap, so you can go quicker. And all of this stuff and playing to see if you are behind somebody, maybe it's worth it to go longer to save energy, making sure that your in lap is really quick. So when everybody comes in, let's say it in close to the middle, you do like almost a flat out lap in, and you will undercut and overtake the cars in front doing that. Because in Formula E, we are racing in middle of the cities. Mm-hmm. That means most of the times we are racing in narrow tracks. So it's really hard to overtake. So all this energy management, it needs to be, it's really important. You can destroy a race or you can win a race.
Mm-hmm. So the focus was on energy management.
Yes, energy management. Yeah. So one of the other aspects is the safety car. The full Corsiello, all of that stuff. So every time you have that, you need to update your numbers, because then, if you are doing a longer stint, but if you have a safety car, then because you are saving energy, there's no sense to call him in to stick with the plan. You can kind of, extend a bit more. So use your energy much wisely. So that's what I was doing. And he ended up, we had really nice races. I remember like one race in Mexico where we were running on the back, and because you had this minimum time you need to be on the pit, you could do some crazy betting. So there was a safety car out, and we thought, okay, it was not near the middle of the race, but we thought if we come in now, then we will need, we do a really long stint with the second car with a really low target, so really high lap time. But because you don't lose the time with the pit stop, maybe you can survive, and that's actually what happened. So we there was a safety car, and we had Lucas was running P20 or whatever, and we called him in, and it was really, we won that race.
Wow.
So it was really good. That one actually, that was because we won it, was the race that kind of stayed. But we already did that in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong we had the same situation. We had he had to came in to change his wing, and we were like running that last, and we came in, but we finished second. So nobody kind of saw, okay, really nice race from Lucas, because he was second. Nobody kind of saw that the move he did. Only whoever was looking on the timing carefully. We always see the winner. But on Mexico, they saw him coming in, rear ring change, he's nowhere, his race is destroyed, and then we ended up in P1, and it was really good.
Very good. Rui, we're running out of time. I'm really enjoying listening to the anecdotes and learning about your experience, but I also want to talk about the course that you have prepared and you have launched in our Motorsport Academy. The course is called Trackside Engineering in Formula E. And having just heard about your experience and everything there is no doubt that there is a lot of exclusive knowledge being shared in this course. But it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about the course.
I mean, in the end, the idea of it is to whoever attends the course and whoever, go through it, if he arrives to Formula E, he will have a really good knowledge to know why are teams doing this, why are the cars pitting now, why, all the concept, they will have it already with them. They will not, they don't need to learn it while doing the job. And I think it gives a big, okay, obviously experience is the only way to have it. There's no question about it. But if you can avoid some of the questions or some of the basic doubts that you have, or some of the basic mistakes that you do that you never done, if you never done Formula E before, I mean, that's an advantage, let's say it. So the idea is a bit that is if you arrive to a Formula E race, afterwards you have seen, everything that I spoke about, then you will be already in a good position. Then, okay, all the teams deal with the problems differently. They deal with with the weekend, but most of it is the same for everybody. So it's the common, there's a baseline that is common for everybody. And that's what I want to transmit, is to tell people what to expect of a Formula E and why are people doing this way in this way. Because Formula E is so different from the other series. That's the question. So it's so different from all the others, that if you have already this, this knowledge on the back of your mind, you're already kind of in a really nice, good starting position.
So what are the highlights from the course? What are the main points, the main modules, the structure that you go through in the course that are so relevant for Formula E?
I mean, in the end, I go through all the aspects. So the preparation of the event. So how do people prepare for the event? What are the key points that you need to have in mind? All the energy numbers that you need to know, all the information that you can have, because the running in Formula E is so short that everything that you can learn beforehand is an advantage. So how to prepare for it, and then how do you prepare the race. So what do you do in free practice, in quali, all the procedures that you need to take care about. And in the race, the race is the big points. So what are the main, the key points on the race that you need to be under control to have a successful result?
Mm-hmm. So knowing also, because I've already seen the course, that you cover some of the basics of the championship and the car, and then you go into the specifics of the pre-event activities, during race activities, and also post-event activities, and so on. Who would you say this course is for? Is it only for professional engineers, or you think there's a scope for people who are interested generally in motorsport also to get a lot of knowledge and value from this course?
I mean, obviously, if you want to know a bit of the background of the Formula E, if you are interested in Formula E, it makes sense that you do it, and because you will understand again, you will understand why people are having this behavior, let's say, on the race. Why are they doing that on the race? And that there's a reason for it. And maybe with the course they will learn, okay, he's doing this because because of the temperature, because of the energy, whatever. And for the normal spectator, let's say, you would not understand that if you don't know this beforehand. I can see actually this course is really, I would advise this for all the TV commentators, because sometimes they're saying stuff that makes no sense. If they knew this, they would understand why people are doing what they are doing. So yeah, that's actually a good point. We'll send it out to all the sport guys. But anyway, apart from this, yeah, everybody that, if you are involved in motorsport and if you are interested in Formula E, yeah, some of the stuff will be the same as other championship, but I think some key stuff, well, like you said, the car, I didn't mention the car, so the car has some particularities that you will need to know beforehand. And if you know that, again, before, it's all good points.
And there's also this, of course, the engineering aspect, the data analysis aspect that you go through in the course. So also for engineering students, I would say that it's a very good and very interesting course to do and to look at. Would you say that there are any preliminary requirements that students need to have to follow the course and understand what you go through?
I mean, no, there's all, let's say, common sense information there. Mm-hmm. So even if you don't have a big background, you will. The way I try to do it is that everybody can understand what is in there, and there will not be any knowledge required beforehand. I think it's done for everybody, that from the experienced guy to the zero experience, I think they will understand what I was talking about. That's the idea of it.
Very good. Really excited to getting people into the course and getting the feedback from the course, because there's no doubt that there's a lot of knowledge being shared there that is super interesting. We're getting into the end of the conversation, sadly, because I'm having a lot of fun, but I wouldn't want to finish this without asking two very important questions. The first one is, for your specific case, you already said that you're from Portugal. There is not that much motorsport engineering knowledge, culture, whatever you want to call it, tradition, like compared to other countries, maybe like the UK, Italy, Germany, and so on. If you look back into your past, what specific thing, like one or two things, do you think you have done that have been key to your success, to the goals that you have achieved until this point?
I mean, don't deny to do the basic stuff, or to do all the steps. Let's say it. It's I think it was the key. So to be able to learn all from the roots, again, tire guy, then car engineer with a small team with the GT, then data as a F2. There was already a big step there, but that's for 3 years when I started it. I think they're quite crucial that you learn the hard way, again, like being in Formula E, brand new team, in the GP2, brand new team, all that experience, that was learned on the hard way, with not so much time sleeping on the tests, trying to fix problems. All of that was to work in the team that was not established, it was growing. many problems. All of that give me a lot of experience that in the end, afterwards, when you have, when you are working on a factory team, you will see how good that experience was. The values that they taught me, was, I think that's what people likes in me, let's say it, or why people keeps calling me for jobs. I'd say is a bit of that, is the being humble to not to accept that sometimes you need to do some jobs that are not meant for you to do, but sometimes you need to do it, and that's it. It's you need to accept it, and well, you don't need to accept it. I would advise to accept it, because in the end you will be rewarded.
That's a very good advice. And then the second question that I want to ask you is for the young people that are watching this video, students that are currently at university, maybe doing the bachelor degree, master's degree, or even PhDs, and also for young professionals that might be working in other industries like automotive, aerospace, whatever it may be, right? So for all these people that are watching and they're thinking, wow, I really want to follow Rui's steps. I want to become a trackside engineer in whichever shape or form, data, race, strategy engineer in a championship like Formula 2, Formula E, even Formula 3, like more fitted series. What advice would you have for them? And also factoring in the current times that we're living today, right, with the global pandemic. What could you say to them?
I mean, if they're watching this video, it's already a good step, because they know they need to get knowledge from all the places that they can find. And that's already the first step, is don't wait for the knowledge to come to you. Just you need to go to look for it. What do I need to learn? What do I need to know to do that job? So all the steps, all the webinars, everything that they can have their hands on, it will be a good experience. And the other one, it's the attitude. I mean, I got where I got, I would say, because I took smaller jobs that ended up in the big jobs. So don't be afraid to take a job that you know is going to take a lot and is going to be hard, because that's only makes you stronger. That's the thing. And if you want to start, I mean, everybody wants to start nowadays on F1 because it's whatever, everybody they want to start directly in Formula E. I mean, good luck if you can do that, but I think you are jumping a lot of steps that will be quite useful.
Very good. Very interesting words. Thank you very much, Rui, for spending your valuable time with us. It's been great speaking with you, getting to know your steps into GP2, Formula E, and I'm sure there's going to be more exciting championships for you to get involved in. It's been really inspirational to a lot of people that will be watching this. So yeah, thank you very much, Rui, and we wish you the best of luck in the future.
Yeah, and I wish everybody enjoys what I have to say afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, so this is the end of this video. Remember that in our Motorsport Academy, you will find several more courses like the one from Rui and other professionals that have been involved in different categories in the motorsport industry. You can find them in our URL, our website, motorsportengineer.net. Until we see you again in the next Motorsport Talks series, I wish you the best in the future and stay healthy. Thank you and goodbye.